My name is Clara Whitmore. I'm 38 years old. 9 months ago, my 11-year-old daughter came home from my mother-in-law's lake house wearing gloves in the middle of July. It was 94 degrees outside. Emma stepped through the front door slowly, backpack hanging off one shoulder, eyes fixed on the floorboards like she was counting them. The gloves were bright yellow gardening gloves. Adult size. The fingertips bent awkwardly because her hands were too small. I laughed automatically at first. "Sweetheart, why are you wearing those?" No answer. I walked closer. "Emma." She pulled her hands behind her back. That was the moment my stomach tightened. Not panic. Not yet. Just the strange cold instinct mothers get seconds before their entire reality changes shape. I crouched in front of her. "Baby, take the gloves off." Her eyes filled immediately. "Grandma said you'd get mad." I didn't understand the sentence then. I do now. I reached forward carefully and peeled the glove off her right hand. 3 fingertips were wrapped in gauze. Not neatly. Messily. Thick white tape wound too tight around the middle and ring finger. There was dried blood along the edge of her nail bed. I stopped breathing for a second. "Emma," I whispered, "what happened?" She stared at the wall behind me. "Grandma said I ruined the quilt." The second glove came off harder because the tape had stuck to the fabric. When it peeled away, Emma gasped in pain. Underneath, her left palm was blistered bright red. Burn marks. Fresh. Angry. Uneven. Not an accident from touching something hot for 1 second. The kind of burn you get from prolonged contact. I looked up at her slowly. "What did she do?" Emma's voice was tiny. She made me hold the iron still so I'd learn to pay attention. What happened over the next 10 days destroyed my marriage, ended my mother-in-law's standing in our town permanently, and exposed the truth about a family everyone believed was respectable. I would survive every second of it again if it meant my daughter never had to sit alone with those people another day. You need to understand something about the Whitmore family before any of this makes sense. From the outside, they looked perfect. Old money. Historic house. Country club memberships. My husband Daniel's father had been a judge for 27 years before retiring. His mother, Lorraine Whitmore, chaired charity galas and church restoration committees and literacy boards. Her photograph appeared in local magazines beside captions like pillars of the community. People lowered their voices around Lorraine. Not because she was kind. Because she was powerful. She had the kind of reputation built carefully over decades. Elegant clothes. Controlled smile. Perfect posture. Expensive perfume that lingered in rooms after she left them. Everything about Lorraine Whitmore said refinement. Except her temper. I met Daniel when I was 26 and teaching 4th grade. He was gentle in the beginning. Funny. Attentive. The kind of man who remembered little things. I grew up poor in a 2-bedroom apartment above a laundromat with a mother who worked double shifts at a diner. Daniel's world looked impossibly stable to me. Family dinners every Sunday. Matching stockings at Christmas. Vacation photos lining the hallway walls. I mistook structure for safety. A lot of people do. Lorraine hated me immediately. Not openly. Lorraine never did anything openly. She simply perfected the art of making someone feel temporary. At my first Thanksgiving with the family, she introduced me to guests as Daniel's little schoolteacher friend. When we got engaged, she smiled and asked if I planned to keep working or focus on being useful at home. At our wedding, she wore ivory. Not cream. Not champagne. Ivory. Close enough to white that 3 different guests whispered about it during the reception. Daniel noticed none of it. Or pretended not to. That became the rhythm of our marriage. Lorraine would wound quietly. Daniel would explain it away. "She doesn't mean it like that. She's old-fashioned. That's just Mom." People excuse cruelty all the time when it arrives wrapped in politeness. Then Emma was born. And for a while, Lorraine behaved. At least publicly. Emma had dark curls and huge brown eyes and the kind of shy smile that made strangers soften instantly around her. She was also left-handed. Lorraine despised that. Not dramatically. Not enough for anyone outside the family to notice. Just constant correction. Fork in the right hand. Pencil moved from left to right. Comments every visit. She'll struggle later if you allow this. Allow this. Like my daughter's body was a behavioral issue. Emma loved art more than anything. Painting especially. She painted constantly. Birds. Trees. Tiny watercolor houses. At 11, she'd already won 2 regional student art contests. Lorraine hated that too. Not the awards. The attention. Emma received praise Lorraine couldn't control. That mattered. 3 months before the lake house incident, Lorraine began quilting obsessively. Handmade quilts. Complex patterns. Historical stitching techniques. Church auction pieces. Everyone praised them constantly. One quilt in particular became Lorraine's masterpiece. A massive blue and gold hand-stitched quilt she planned to enter in the County Heritage Exhibition. She talked about it endlessly. The Heritage Quilt. The Exhibition Quilt. The Whitmore Quilt. Every family dinner somehow returned to the quilt. Emma complimented it once. That was all it took. Lorraine invited Emma to learn proper sewing over summer break at the lake house. Daniel thought it sounded wonderful. Mom's trying to bond. I hesitated immediately. Emma didn't want to go. I noticed that too. She'll criticize everything I do, Emma whispered one night while brushing her teeth. I knelt beside her. You don't have to go if you really don't want to. Then Daniel overheard. And suddenly it became a whole discussion about effort and family and giving grandma a chance. That phrase destroys more children than people realize. Give them a chance. As though children owe adults unlimited access regardless of behavior. The trip lasted 4 days. Lorraine texted photos constantly. Emma sitting at the sewing table. Emma holding fabric squares. Emma smiling stiffly beside the quilt frame. Every picture looked staged. Because they were. On the 3rd night, I called Emma before bed. Lorraine answered instead. She's exhausted. Busy day sewing. I asked to speak with my daughter anyway. Long silence. Then Emma's voice arrived small and careful. Hi Mom. Something was wrong immediately. Children sound different when they're being monitored. You can hear it. I asked if she was okay. Yes. Too fast. Are you having fun? Yes. Too rehearsed. Then quietly. I accidentally messed something up. Lorraine's voice appeared instantly in the background. Emma, honesty matters. Emma went silent. My chest tightened. What happened? Another pause. I spilled tea near the quilt. Lorraine laughed lightly behind her. A learning experience. I barely slept that night. The next afternoon, Emma came home wearing yellow gloves in July. After I saw the burns, I took photographs immediately. 12 photos. Different angles. Close-ups. The gauze. The blistering. The finger injuries. Then I asked the question that changed everything. Did Grandma take you to a doctor? Emma shook her head. No. She said I needed to remember the lesson first. Lesson. I drove straight to urgent care. The nurse unwrapped Emma's fingers carefully. Halfway through, she stopped talking. One fingernail had partially lifted from the nail bed. The burn on Emma's palm had blistered severely enough to require medical treatment. The physician entered quietly afterward and asked Emma something while I stood frozen beside the wall. Sweetheart, can you tell me exactly how this happened? Emma stared at her lap. I spilled tea on the quilt. And then, silence. Then tears. Grandma made me hold the iron on the stain because she said ruining beautiful things should hurt. The room went perfectly still. The doctor looked at me. Not emotionally. Professionally. That was worse. We're required to report this. I nodded. Because by then I already knew. The report went through Child Protective Services before we even left the clinic. Daniel still didn't know. I called him from the parking lot. At urgent care. Emma's hurt. He arrived 20 minutes later. Still in work clothes. Still carrying his laptop bag. He walked into the exam room smiling slightly like he expected something minor. Then he saw Emma's hands. His entire face changed. What happened? I answered before Emma could. Your mother burned our daughter. He blinked. No. I handed him the medical report. No. Again. Like repetition could undo evidence. I showed him the photographs. Then I told him what Emma said. Daniel sat down slowly in the plastic chair beside the wall. His hands covered his mouth. For a second, I thought he finally understood. Then he whispered the sentence that ended our marriage even though neither of us admitted it yet. There has to be more to the story. I looked at him carefully. At the man I'd spent 12 years defending, protecting, excusing. And suddenly I realized something devastating. Some people don't protect children first. They protect the system that makes them comfortable, even when it costs their child safety. That night Emma slept curled beside me in bed. At 2:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Lorraine. One voicemail. Calm. Controlled. Clara, I think you're allowing Emma's imagination to escalate a minor incident. Discipline can feel uncomfortable for children. I'd strongly advise handling this privately before people begin misunderstanding the situation. I listened twice. Then saved it. The next morning, CPS interviewed Emma. Separately. Without me in the room. When she came out afterward, her eyes were swollen from crying. The caseworker pulled me aside. Your daughter described multiple punishment incidents. Ice flooded my chest. What kind of incidents? She says Lorraine regularly forced her to sew for hours without breaks, slapped her hands with rulers for mistakes, and locked her in the laundry room twice for disrespectful attitude. I physically grabbed the wall beside me. Laundry room. Emma was claustrophobic. Lorraine knew that. Children don't accidentally invent details like that. Daniel still wanted to talk to his mother first. I remember staring at him in disbelief. Talk. Like this was a disagreement over property lines. Not child abuse. Then things got worse. Much worse. Because wealthy, respected families don't collapse quietly. They protect themselves. By Friday morning, Lorraine had already started calling people. Church members. Family friends. Neighbors. The narrative spread fast. Emma was dramatic. I was unstable. We were misinterpreting discipline. One woman from Daniel's church actually texted. Older generations parent differently. Try Grace. Grace. My daughter had second-degree burns. I stopped replying to everyone after that. Instead, I started collecting evidence. Every voicemail. Every text. Every email. Then Saturday night, I found the videos. Lorraine's lake house had security cameras throughout the downstairs. Daniel had access through the family account. He forgot I knew the password. I opened the archived footage from the quilting room. July 11th, 3:42 p.m. Emma spilled tea accidentally beside the quilt frame. Not on the quilt. Beside it. A tiny splash on scrap fabric. Lorraine stood slowly. No yelling. No chaos. That somehow made it worse. She unplugged the iron. Wrapped Emma's fingers around the handle. Then forced her hand down against the hot metal. Emma screamed immediately. Lorraine didn't react. Not even a flinch. She simply said, "Maybe now you'll learn carelessness has consequences." I stopped the video. Vomited in the kitchen sink. Then went back and watched the rest. Because mothers do impossible things once the truth matters more than their own comfort. The second video showed Lorraine forcing Emma back into the chair afterward. Still crying. Still injured. Still trembling. And Lorraine saying calmly, "If you tell your mother, she'll only make everything worse." That sentence broke something permanent inside me. Not the burn. Not even the cruelty. The manipulation. The certainty that she could hurt a child and still control the story afterward. That was evil. Real evil rarely screams. It explains itself politely. Sunday morning, the Whitmore family hosted their annual charity brunch. Over 80 guests. City council members. Church leadership. Business owners. Lorraine planned to unveil the heritage quilt there before submitting it to the county exhibition. Daniel begged me not to go. Please, he whispered. This will become public. I looked at him for a very long time. Then answered quietly. It already became public when your mother burned our daughter. I attended wearing a navy dress and carrying a single garment bag. Inside it, the quilt, the photographs, printed medical reports, and a flash drive containing the security footage. Lorraine greeted guests near the garden fountain wearing pearls and smiling like royalty. Then she saw me, and froze. Just briefly. But enough. I walked directly to the display table. Picked up the microphone beside the brunch podium. Tapped it once. The entire garden quieted. Lorraine recovered quickly. Clara, she laughed softly, what are you doing? I unzipped the garment bag slowly. Pulled out the quilt. Beautiful blue and gold stitching. Hours of work. Admiration rippled through the crowd. Then I held up the photographs beside it. Emma's burned hand. The blistering. The torn nail. Silence dropped instantly. Absolute silence. I spoke clearly. Last week, Lorraine Whitmore burned my 11-year-old daughter after she accidentally spilled tea near this quilt. Gasps. Real ones. Lorraine stepped forward immediately. This is absurd. I held up the flash drive. I have security footage. That changed everything. You could actually feel the crowd shift. People believe reputation until evidence arrives. Then reputation becomes decoration. Lorraine's face changed for the first time in 12 years. Not guilt. Fear. She whispered sharply. Clara, stop this right now. No. I turned toward the crowd. My daughter was told pain was necessary to teach respect. She was denied medical care. Then she was threatened into silence. Daniel stood near the hedge looking like a man watching his entire identity collapse in real time. One church elder spoke first. Lorraine, is this true? Lorraine straightened her spine. And made the worst decision of her life. She ruined months of work, she snapped. Children today have no discipline. The crowd recoiled physically. Actually recoiled. Because suddenly everyone could see it. Not a misunderstanding. Not an accident. Entitlement. Cruelty. Pride. One woman walked directly away from Lorraine mid-conversation. Another removed her charity committee badge and placed it silently on the table beside the quilt. I'll never forget that. No yelling. No dramatic speeches. Just a tiny quiet gesture saying, I see you clearly now. Lorraine tried one last time. She's turning Emma against family. I looked directly at her. No, Lorraine. You did that yourself the moment my daughter learned your love depended on obedience. Nobody clapped. Nobody shouted. They simply stared at her. And sometimes silence is the loudest judgment people can deliver. CPS substantiated the abuse findings 2 weeks later. The County Heritage Committee removed Lorraine from their board. 3 charity organizations asked her to resign quietly. The church suspended her leadership role indefinitely. Daniel moved into an apartment downtown after Emma refused to be alone with him. Not because he hurt her. Because he hesitated. Children remember hesitation almost as deeply as harm. Emma started trauma therapy twice a week. For months she couldn't touch an iron without panicking. Even steam from a kettle made her shake. Healing isn't cinematic. It's slow. Messy. Tiny. 6 months later, Emma painted again for the first time. A watercolor of a blue lake at sunset. In the corner she painted a little yellow glove floating on the water. I asked what it meant. She shrugged. That's the last day I was scared of her. I cried in the bathroom afterward where she couldn't hear me. Last Tuesday, Emma stood in the kitchen while I ironed school uniforms. She watched carefully for a minute. Then asked softly, Mom, if somebody hurts you and everybody says they're still a good person, does that mean they are? I turned the iron off completely before answering. No, baby. I walked over and held her carefully. It just means some people care more about comfort than truth. She nodded against my shoulder. Then after a minute, I'm glad you picked me. That sentence healed something inside me I didn't know was broken. I spent 12 years trying to become acceptable enough for the Whitmore family to love me. Quieter. More polished. More agreeable. I thought belonging required endurance. It doesn't. Real love does not ask children to bleed for acceptance. And any family that protects reputation before safety was never truly a family at all. That's my story. One yellow pair of gardening gloves. One handmade quilt. And one mother who finally realized protecting peace and protecting a child are not always the same thing.